If you arrive at the hamlet of Dallenford by the western road, you will see the lake long before you glimpse the chimneys. It rests like a lens of burnished steel among the pines, so still it seems to hold its breath. Travellers have always called it Mirror Lake, and the name preceded any map. Villagers call it other things, some affectionate, some fearful. But every child in Dallenford learns the first rule before he can spell his own name. Never linger over your reflection once the sun has set. I did not grow up with those rules. I arrived the year I turned 34, carrying the clipped vowels of a coastal university and a research grant for comparative folklore of interior provinces. My hosts expected a polite scholar who would jot down ghost stories to pad an appendix. Instead, I became the first outsider to witness the legend unfold. The first to bargain with the kingdom beneath. The bargain holds still if my quill doesn't tremble too badly, and if you read to the end, you may decide whether you wish it to hold at all. My interest began with a rhyme. In the dusty archive of the provincial capital, I found a single broadsheet dated 1817, folded around a solicitor's letter. The verse was simple. Above the gleam, the bright folk wake. Below the glass, the dark folk break. At midnight's hush, let no heart quake, for twins will rise from Mirror Lake. I assumed some harmless nonsense until I noticed staples of lake lore scattered among parish registers, mentions of unmannerly reflections, of farmers who left watering cans by the shore only to find them missing from both hand and mirror, of a spinning maid who slapped her own reflection and fainted as her real cheek stung. The records cut off abruptly in 1882 after a notation in the church ledger. Service postponed for want of congregation. 37 missing on Ascension Eve. No one recorded a cause. No one filed a coroner's report. The entries simply resumed a month later as if the missing had never existed. Folklore thrives on gaps. Gaps invite imaginations, like hollows invite vines. I meant to stay 1 week, perhaps 2. I stayed 6 months, long enough to watch the gap widen. The first person I befriended was Magda Hobb, the innkeeper, whose grandmother had vanished in the winter of 1882. Magda kept a portrait above the hearth, a slim woman in a black dress, eyes bright, mouth prim. The artist, too poor for pigments, had coated the canvas with a thin layer of mirrored mica so that a ghost of the viewer's face hovered over the painted one. My gran always said her mother never stopped looking back, Magda told me, pointing to the shimmer that fused us. Looking back is the danger. Magda's husband, Aldous, laughed at her superstition, but only in daylight. After dusk, he barred the shutters and kept every reflective surface turned to the wall, pans, pitchers, even the copper warming tray. The precaution cast the inn in a dull haze. I polished my spectacles each morning just to see the world clearly. 2 weeks into my stay, I judged the village harmless enough. A rutted street, a church whose bell rotted on its hook, 3 docked boats at the lake's edge. Beyond lay forest, and beyond that tumbled granite peaks the colour of unripe plums. Yet conversations shifted whenever Mirror Lake entered earshot. Fishermen hauled nets sideways, so no ripple might show their faces. Children skipped stones, only if someone stood between them and the water. Each act betrayed a choreography rehearsed through generations. On the 3rd Friday, I woke before dawn and stole to the shore with my notebook. Mist clung to the surface like breath upon a window pane. Sunrise painted the bowl of the lake amber. The water held the colour so perfectly that sky and reflection meshed, indistinguishable. I squatted and traced a fingertip along the sheen. Nothing miraculous happened. I felt only cold. Feeling triumphant, or at least smug, I leaned closer until my nose almost kissed its twin. A tap sounded from beneath. I jerked back. The water did not ripple. The tap came again, sharper, as if knuckles struck glass. Gooseflesh climbed my arms. I looked to the pines. No wind. I looked down. My reflection remained where it should, except one hand rested flat against the surface, palm outward, while my real hand hugged my chest. The other me watched with solemn forbearance, as if indulging a frightened animal. I tried to lift my reflected hand. It stayed. I scuttled backward on hands and knees, and only then did the double fold its arms to match my pose. A third tap followed, this time fainter, resigned. Then the lake resumed its perfect mimicry. I told no one that day. A scholar's pride is a stubborn weed. Instead, I interviewed elders, compiling every scrap of rhyme, curse, or admonition. The pattern grew unmistakable. Once or twice each generation, the reflections rebelled. They attempted to climb free, and for a single night, the boundary thinned enough to let some pass. The humans who vanished in those hours were not drowned. They were taken, substituted, some said dragged, into a kingdom beneath where light fell upward and the sky was a floor of glass. The rebellion always ended before dawn. The mirror folk could not abide true sunlight. They retreated, dragging their captives through the skin of the lake like thieves pulling loot through a window. In exchange, they left muted copies, hollow-eyed, obedient duplicates who performed chores without complaint, until the copies themselves dissolved weeks later like frost. The village never spoke of the lost. They planted no headstones and recited no liturgies. Instead, they lived carefully, teaching the next generation to avoid reflective accidents to dull the world's silver. Winter approached. Pines drooped with snow that glowed blue in moonlight. I resolved to witness the rebellion should it come. I rented a skiff and tethered it to the inn's posts so I could row whenever needed. Meanwhile, I traced the lake's circumference. I mapped currents. If currents they could be called, since no wind stirred the surface. The water clarified my reflection so deeply that my double seemed closer than my own skin, yet fish darted beneath unhindered. Once I saw a trout leap, break the skin with a tidy splash, then slice back, splitting my mirrored chest before sealing the seam. The rebellion came sooner than I guessed. On the night of the winter solstice, the village gathered for the Festival of Shutters, a custom older than parish records. We drank spiced mead and hammered wooden boards over every window so no accidental reflection might invite curiosity from below. I expected to document quaint ritual. Instead, I found myself conscripted. Aldous handed me a mallet, and Magda taught me the invocation. "One eye above, one eye below, see me not, for here I go." Superstition, I thought, but I repeated the words. Midnight neared. The carpenter's son, a spry youth of 15 named Syl, grew restless. He teased the younger children, fluttering fingers to mimic fish tails. When the adults turned to retie a slipped knot, Syl vanished through an unlatched door. The chill that entered felt alive, a long exhale from something that had waited centuries. Cries erupted. I joined the search party, hurrying toward the lake along a narrow bladed path. The moon, full and high, rode the sky like a silver coin tossed upon black cloth. Mirror Lake reflected it so exactly that the horizon vanished. We trudged through stars. Syl stood on the shore, arms spread, greeting his reflection as one greets a friend glimpsed across a ballroom. His mirrored self leaned closer, lips forming words underwater. "Syl," his father shouted, "step away." The boy did not. The reflection lifted a hand and placed its palm against the underside of the water. Moonlight sheathed the gesture in pale fire. Syl answered by pressing his own palm atop the water. No ripple occurred. Flesh met flesh through a membrane that rejected both as intruders. I remember the hiss of torches, the crunch of snow, the sharp collective gasp when the reflection tightened its grip. Syl tried to withdraw but found himself anchored. His reflection pulled, not downward, but sideways, as though the world had rotated 90 degrees. The boy's body began to slide into the water without submerging, passing through the plane like a figure sketched on parchment, sliding into its opposite page. First his arm, then shoulder, then half of his face disappeared beneath the mirror skin. His real eyes widened. His mirrored eyes shone calm, inexorable. Villagers lunged. Magda seized Syl's belt. Aldous grabbed her waist. I gripped his coat. We formed a chain, yet the reflected lake beneath showed no such chain, only Syl's doppelganger dragging an unencumbered prize. The mirror folk ignored physics as we knew it. Rope, air and touch remained partitioned. Our strength failed. Syl vanished with a silent shudder. The water closed without splash, leaving nothing but our panting forms and a single wet boot. Syl's mother howled, a sound that stripped bark from memory. The villagers retreated, counting heads, barring doors anew. Dawn took centuries to arrive. No more children were lost that night, but no one slept. They knew the rebellion had begun its cycle. I had witnessed enough to discard skepticism. I resolved to cross into their realm, not to steal captives, for I doubted my talents, but to record truth and, if possible, negotiate peace. My plan used the one breach we understood, the moment of contact between reflection and original. If I could trick my reflection into complacency, I might lead the crossing on my own terms. 2 nights later, clouds swallowed the moon, granting darkness thick as damp wool. Snow fell in leisurely spirals. I rowed my skiff to the lake's centre, carrying only a lantern, a rope and a silver shaving mirror wrapped in cloth. My breath iced my collar. I waited until the water settled flat as slate. Then I unwrapped the little mirror and angled it above the lake so that my reflected face floated upon the bigger reflection, frame within frame, like an invitation. A ripple shivered through the water and stilled. My double in the lake blinked first, an inversion of the expected choreography. He raised his lantern arm. I followed suit. He smiled. I did not, yet my lips curled in the water's face. Control was loosening. I felt tugged, not bodily but in thought, as if my reflection leaned on a hinge of intention. "Not yet," I whispered, gripping the rope. I made a loop at one end and slipped it over my wrist, fastening the other end to the skiff's mast. Should I pass through, the rope might serve either lifeline or proof. I touched the lake's surface with my left hand. The water grew firm, resilient, like oiled parchment. My mirror hand pressed upward on the same spot. Contact chilled my bones while igniting my skin as if frostbitten and sunburned together. I inhaled. "Let me enter willingly," I said aloud, unsure which world would carry the words. My reflection nodded. I pushed. The membrane parted soundlessly, and my hand slid into cool air tinged with copper. I leaned, shoulder breaching, torso turning, pivoting as if climbing over a stile. Gravity rotated. Up became sideways. My ears popped. For a moment I floated between realms, then tumbled lightly, landing on feet upon a surface identical to the lake above. I stood inside a bowl inverted over mine. Sky below, water above, somehow both. The lantern remained in my right hand, burning though no oil fed it. The skiff, mast, rope, all hovered overhead, reversed like a child's drawing pinned wrong ways. The rope tugged against my wrist, swaying upward. I considered untethering myself, but kept it as a breadcrumb trail. I had imagined a kingdom of coral palaces and wave-carved halls. Instead, I saw forest. Trunks clear as crystal, leaves serrated like the edge of broken dreams, light pooling on the undersides of things, colour reversed. Snow on branches was black, bark was white as bleached bone. Between trunks moved silhouettes, people without pupils, their faces luminous grey, as if carved from the blank of mirrors, silver before the polish. One approached. My own double. He bowed. "Welcome," he said, though his mouth did not move. The words formed inside my skull, bypassing hearing altogether. "You cross by the old rate. Negotiated privilege. Speak purpose." I swallowed. "I seek Syl, the carpenter's son, and any others detained." "And I seek understanding." My double's head tilted. "Detained?" None detained. We reclaim the first blood right. We were carved from your light, condemned to obey. We bore centuries of mimicry. Every motion you claimed, we repeated, shackled to your sky floor. We seek parity. Parity by kidnapping? He spread hands, an eloquent gesture of resignation. Exchange. You rule one realm, we another. We invite you to treat. Around us, more mirrorfolk gathered, each an imperfect twin of someone I had glimpsed in Darlinford. Yet they did not replicate my current pose. They moved independently, curiosity freed. A girl emerged, pale hair drifting like algae strands. Syl walked with her, gaze vacant, but body intact. His skin glimmered softly, not mere reflection, but something refracted, as though lit from within by low dawn. He adapts, my double explained. We grant him self. A flicker of anger warmed me. He had self already, had ritual, had caution, had fear. Here he will learn to leap first, not follow. I considered the ledger entries, the missing decades, the hollow duplicates dissolving to nothing. Perhaps what the villagers called copies were mirror folk attempting to live upward, scorched by sun and expectation until they faded. Symmetry demanded time to equalize, like water levels through a narrow pipe. "What do you want from Dallinford now?" he asked. "A pact written upon the skin of the lake. A place where border may open at appointed feasts, where travellers may cross both ways. No more thieving at windows, no more fear. Consent, not conquest." Why ask me? You stepped willing, you carry words, you see both sides. The rope twitched. From above, or rather below, the skiff drifted. Ice formed on the rope fibres. My wrist ached. Time ran skewed here. Perhaps dawn approached overhead. "I can propose terms," I said slowly. "But the villagers trust neither me nor you. Demonstration of goodwill is required." Select demonstration. Return Syl at dawn, unharmed, with memory intact. Walk him to the shore yourself, where all may see. Agreement rippled through the assembly like a breeze across grass. My double placed a palm to his chest. "Accepted. And you will speak on our behalf. I will attempt, then depart with witness." He gestured to the rope. I climbed, body again hoisted by reorienting gravity. As my head breached the boundary, voices reached real ears. Distant calling, frantic oars. I heaved onto the skiff, water dry upon my coat. The rope's loop came free. I left it coiled like a proof of mathematics. Before I rowed ashore, I looked once more. The lake showed only me and a vacant boat, yet faintly, at impossible depth, I glimpsed glimmering shapes moving with sovereign intention. Dawn painted the sky rose. Villagers thronged the shore, clutching lanterns, dim in daylight. I waded through questions to Magda and Aldous, and trembling, recounted my journey. Skepticism wavered when I produced a twig of crystal-leafed branch, black as midnight snow, plucked from the inverse forest. We waited. The sun cleared the tree line. At its first full shaft, the lake rippled. 2 figures rose, not breaking the surface, but ascending as if lifted through transparent ice. Syl stepped onto frost-hardened sand, cheeks flushed. Beside him stood a boy, shaped of waterlight, Syl's reflection, yet whole in himself. The villagers gasped. Some knelt, some fled. Syl's mother ran, embraced her son. The reflection watched calmly before nodding to us, then sank back, leaving only rings widening outward until sucked flat. The rebels had kept their word. I faced the elders that evening in the shuttered town hall. Some called for barricades. Others, moved by Syl's safe return, urged dialogue. The priest argued scripture. The miller cited profit from potential trade. Glass-forged tools, mirrored oars glimpsed in that beneath domain. Debate teetered until Syl himself spoke. In a voice older than 15, he said, "I have seen myself free of fear. They will not be caged again. If we refuse, they will come by force, and we will weaken one another forever. If we accept, we may share the sky." Sill's words swayed them more than scholarship could. By midnight, they drafted terms. On solstices and equinoxes, the lake would host a crossing. One family each side might volunteer to exchange children of age 13 to 19 for a season's apprenticeship. Any object taken must be matched by gift of equal weight. Neither side would seize without consent. The writ was inked on parchment, laminated in wax, and sealed in a cedar box weighted with lead, then lowered to the lake's deepest point. 2 reflections retrieved it, bowing before they sank. So the pact was made. I left Dallenford in spring, my grant overdue, my notebooks bulging. Magda pressed the mica portrait into my hands. "Carry her forward," she said. I still see my own faint image laced over the grandmother's unwavering gaze, a reminder that every surface holds more than one story. The world beyond calls Mirror Lake picturesque, a source for artists craving stillness. They paint its flawless reflections, never knowing those reflections can warp. During exhibitions, I watch patrons admire symmetry. I do not enlighten them. A pact requires trust, and trust sometimes requires silence. Yet tonight, I write this account because contracts age and memories erode, and you caretakers must know the stakes. If you come to Mirror Lake, respect the hour, mind the surface. Should your reflection linger after you have turned, greet it politely and state your name. You may be addressing an emissary tired of imitation, eager for conversation. Remember, water reflects what is, but a mirror can reflect what might be. And in that thin space between is and might, a kingdom listens.